welcome to 2 on OSU. This is a sellout crowd production. I'm Sam Hutchens, joined by my twin brother, Ben Hutchens, and we are covering Oklahoma State. We've been on the beat for a while, but very excited to do it with a new company, surrounded by fantastic people. And Ben, we'll jump right into it. This show is about Oklahoma State, talking about the beat experience, and of course, Cowboy football is at the forefront of everything right now with the season starting on Saturday. The Cowboys will kick off against Central Arkansas in Stillwater. Ben, what's up?
Hey, you talked about all that's changed. Well, we're still here talking sports over a little call, so certainly some things haven't changed. Sam, it's good to be with you. Um, it's this whole offseason. The looming question has been, well, who's going to start at quarterback? In the winter, OSU went out and grabbed Alan Bowman, who by now at this point in the season everybody's familiar with. A lot of people have figured he would immediately come in and take the reins and be kind of a bridge guy between eras. Hey, let's see what the veteran can do here. And then you also have Garret Rangel, the young guy. We saw what he could do last year. As with young guys, a lot of highs, a lot of lows, Sam. Kansas game was a low. Sometimes at the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, hey, this Garret Rangel guy can be pretty good. So that's been the looming question, Sam. Quarterback. We haven't, even at this point in the season, gotten too much clarity on it.
That's right. Initially, there was talks, hey, it could be a four-man competition. Maybe Flores, the Gretna, Nebraska high school quarterback, comes in and balls out in camp. But no, it's kind of whittled down to two main contenders for the Cowboys to trot out on week one. And when asked about it in his press conference, Mike Gundy said, well, it'll be multiple. And Barry Trammell asked, is multiple mean 2 or 3? And Mike wouldn't disclose anything beyond that. But Ben, I think we're both expecting both Rangel and Bowman to get plenty of snaps against Central Arkansas. And we'll get into the game later. I imagine Oklahoma State will have flexibility in terms of playing young players, getting plenty of reps for the 2s and the 3s in there. But Ben, do you have a prediction as it stands right now? Who trots out for the Cowboys to lead that first drive, Alan Bowman or Garret Rangel?
I think it'll be Bowman on the first drive. It just feels like that's just kind of been the feel this entire offseason with Bowman. And, he is more of the sure answer there. If you want to go out, just win a game, I feel like Bowman's a guy who he could go play the first half, play well, and then we could see Rangel in the second half, or however they're going to split it up. But I certainly think it's going to be Alan Bowman there at the start, at least to start this one.
This game sort of harkens back to 2019. Ben, remember that game Oklahoma State played at Oregon State when going into that game, it was a quarterback battle. Hey, the Cowboys are going to play multiple guys, feel it out. And then Spencer Sanders came in that first half and played incredibly well. The defense was not playing so well, let Oregon State kind of keep in that game. And then eventually the Cowboys, I don't think Spencer Sanders ever came out of that game. So maybe there's a chance, Ben, that against Central Arkansas, Gundy's plan of playing multiple quarterbacks goes by the wayside if one of these quarterbacks comes in and balls out. But I do anticipate the Cowboys getting at least Alan Bowman and Garret Rangel snaps in that order, and probably Gunnar Gundy. Honestly, I could see coming in this opening game too.
Depends how big the fourth quarter lead is, or if there is a fourth quarter lead, right? I think with that last one, it's interesting. You harken back to 2019. That's really the last data point we have, on a Gundy quarterback battle, right? It's been Spencer Sanders there, as the presumed starter, and that's been so solid for the Cowboys. So it is interesting to think, okay, in 2019. Really nobody knew up until game time, that it was going to be Spencer Sanders. In that year, the tie, in a sense, went to the younger guy. Drew Brown was a veteran guy, and they wanted to let the young guy show what he could do. So maybe that's the case this year, maybe not. I think Bowman, but that's really all we got, and we'll wait to see until who starts throwing reps in the practice before that game on Saturday.
Ben, you talked about the lead against Central Arkansas that Oklahoma State's going to build up like it's a sure thing. Are you ready to jump into a huge prediction? Is Oklahoma State going to start the year 1-0 against a Central Arkansas team that lost 59-3 against Ole Miss last year. In I checked, the Bears schedule. That was kind of their similar. That was their Power 5 game against Ole Miss. So are you expecting 59-3 or something like it in Stillwater on Saturday?
Yeah, huge prediction. OSU starts out 1-0 against Central Arkansas. I do think that's definitely the case. And I think it should be the case for Mike Gundy. It's certainly, he said there's going to be 4 to 5 times more players playing in this opening game than in any season opener he's ever coached. So I think that's certainly the expectation and the hope in the Cowboy sideline is to get to a point in this game where they can play a bunch of different guys, see where everyone's at under the lights. So I do certainly think the Cowboys are going to take care of business in this one. Is that where you're at as well?
Yeah, I just want to say I thought about that quote. I'm not even sure that that's mathematically possible.
I know.
I was thinking if with there's already a lot of players that usually go in on week one that you can even redshirt and not play again for a while. So I don't think that's mathematically possible for Oklahoma State to play 4 or 5 times the amount of new players that they usually play. I'm like, Mike, that would be your whole roster if But it might have just been a Gundy expression to say that there's going to be a ton of new faces because even in the ones, the starters, there's going to be a ton of new faces. And we mentioned, Bowman, who's thrown 11 passes at Michigan over the last 2 years, but you can go down the entire roster and there are new players. There are players that we really haven't seen before that are expected to have a bigger role for the Cowboys. So that's exciting. But Ben, do you mind if I make the case for Central Arkansas very quickly?
I'll hear it out.
Central Arkansas, I'll just give a little rundown. So they're an FCS team, right? And the Cowboys have not lost a non-conference game since 2016. And Mike Gundy's undefeated against FCS schools. Oklahoma State has won 27 straight home openers. So that's tough, right? But I said I'd make the case for the Bears. The Bears have a couple nice players, and I'm not saying it's going to be enough to win. I think the Cowboys will be up probably 30 or 40 points at least some point in the ball game. But I will say that Central Arkansas, they're returning a senior quarterback, Will McElvain, and their running back is a good player, a kid named Darius Hale. And Hale had some D1 offers. So he's a player that could be interesting test-wise for the new look front for Brian Nardo and the Cowboys defense. And also the player that I'm probably most excited to see for the Bears is their the reigning A-Sun Defensive Player of the Year, David Walker, who's a defensive end. So I guess I'm just excited to see how he fares against the Cowboys tackles, Cole Birmingham, Jake Springfield. Maybe those guys get a little bit of a test because, hey, David Walker seems like a pretty good player. But yeah, I think the Cowboys, this is probably the only game that you can kind of circle and say, yeah, the Cowboys could win this with a D plus or F performance just based on the talent. And that's how it goes, just like it did for the Bears last year against Ole Miss. But some quality players to watch out for.
Absolutely, and Mike Gundy also mentioned in his press conference. We didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about UCA, but he said, "Hey, they're consistent. They've done it for a while now under Coach Nathan Brown. So he certainly has a healthy amount of respect for UCA. But I think much more. I think much more of the focus of this game is going to be on what the Cowboys are doing versus what
Yeah.
UCA is doing. I think this is certainly going to be a situation where, hey, it'll be the debut of Brian Nardo, his new front. What does that look like? How does OSU handle the heat with all these players coming in and rotating with 150-degree turf? Another number that it was just a little hard to believe, I think. So it'll certainly be a lot of fun to watch. Definitely more storylines on the Cowboy side, though.
Last year, the Cowboys gave up 44 points to Central Michigan in their season opener. That was Derek Mason's debut game, and it got a little better from there. But we'll see what Brian Nardo does. I don't know if he can keep it under 44. I imagine that's well shy of what he'd like the Bears to score. But it's the debut of the 3-3-5 defense. So, Ben, that'll be exciting. And just watching up from the press box, you kind of get to see formations a little easier. I'm interested to see how the defense that Mike Gundy searched far and wide for, and quite literally pretty much every nook and cranny of college football coaches in this land, that he found the scheme he wanted, and it's going to be in public view for the first time.
A player I know you've written a little bit about is Justin Kirkland up there at the nose tackle. Sam, you've got to be surely looking forward to watching him get out there.
I've heard some pretty great stories about Justin Kirkland. He's the Cowboys' heaviest player, and he plays nose tackle. And he's listed as an or on the depth chart right now with Colin Clay. But expect both of those guys to play. That's not a one guy sits and the other guy is out there for 100% of snaps. I expect Nardo to be rotating both Kirkland and Clay in and out. But yeah, Kirkland's a fascinating guy, transferred in from Utah Tech, and he tips the scales over 350 pounds, but he played tennis in high school. He's limber and nimble, and he benched 225 for 40 reps. So he's ridiculously strong. I was talking with Anthony Goodlow, a 6'5" beast of a man on the Cowboy defensive line, and he's like, I can't even do half of that. So pretty interesting to see what Kirkland will look like. I imagine he'll face some double teams and still be unmoved and drag down some running backs. So I'm excited to see what he looks like.
So let's talk about the season as a whole. I mean, if you remember the mood, I mean, it was such a unique season last year with the mood. A lot of people sour, just a lot of feelings, a lot of this. What's going to be the mood after this season, Sam? How do you see it going? 2023-24.
Yeah, we'll do record predictions, and I'm not a guy who puts a ton of stock in record predictions. Oklahoma State looked like two completely different teams last year, where they went into that TCU game with all the momentum in the world, and then it's just injuries happened, and they were a completely different team. So all these AP poll stuff, all preseason projections, they will all change and make everyone look like fools come December. But I think the Cowboys are going to be a lot better than Las Vegas does, certainly. The Cowboys are supposed to win 6.5 games. That's the line right now. And there's a lot of factors that you could point to, Ben. We'll dig into it. But I think the Cowboys I think they'll be 9-3. I have them losing 3 games against Kansas State, OU, and at UCF. That's not accounting for the game that's pretty easy to pick for a lot of schools, which is, they'll always lose one they shouldn't. But I just went through the schedule and said I think they'll be 9-3. Ben, what do you have them at?
I got them at 8-4. You mentioned the games. OU's tough. Kansas is tough this year. You got to go 2 Ames this year. That's been a tricky place for the Cowboys. And watch South Alabama in this non-conference schedule. A lot of people been talking about South Alabama.
They got a
but I
vote,
also
Ben.
have
South Alabama has one more preseason vote than Oklahoma State got. I know I just spent the last 30 seconds crapping on what preseason votes mean, but hey, they're not bad to get.
No. But, I guess both of us, compared to what you said, Las Vegas, we're both optimistic. I think this defense is going to be much improved. It has to be, frankly, for the Cowboys to be successful. And I think if they can find the answer at quarterback, it's going to be a relatively successful season. 8-4. You got them at 9-3.
And Ben, I guess it's not even a byproduct of both of us being high on the Cowboys compared to Las Vegas. I don't think you and I are especially high on the roster or the transfers they brought in. I mean, they're quality pieces, but the schedule lines up very well for Oklahoma State. They get Bedlam at home, they get Kansas State at home, and they get all 4 of the new schools in, which are BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF. And I actually have the Cowboys losing at UCF, but I think all 4 of those games are extremely winnable. And Oklahoma State misses TCU, which has been a house of horrors for them a little bit. They miss Texas, which Texas is, I see a ton of Texas hype, and I think probably deservedly so for this year. So I think the schedule been Gundy and Schramm and Weiberg, they had to have given a little fist pump of, wow, heading into the new Big 12 era, if the Cowboys can't at least be playing for a shot to Arlington late into the year, it's going to be trouble.
Yeah, it's certainly a possibility this season with that schedule you mentioned. With the Big 12 though, I think no game. It's hard to call any schedule soft, especially in the Big 12, with teams that kind of came out of nowhere last year, where you might have thought K-State would be a soft game, and that turns out to be one of the worst. I think it maybe was the worst loss in OSU history.
Yep.
That
In
K-State
Gundy
team.
history.
Sorry, yeah. So we really just don't know, what some of these teams in the Big 12 are going to look like. But yeah, sitting here today in August, yeah, Cowboys got a relatively favorable schedule.
And there could very well be, like you said, another Kansas State, another TCU that maybe it's Texas Tech this year that wins a ton of one-score games and they play well. And maybe they not only get to Arlington and maybe do a college football playoff, but I at least see the Cowboys having an outside shot at a Big 12 championship game berth pretty late in the year. I don't see them playing too much meaningless football. I know last year, Ben, it kind of felt like the entire back half of the schedule, it didn't mean a whole lot. Like, yeah, maybe the Cowboys were going to sneak into a guaranteed rate bowl situation, but there wasn't really a ton to play for. It felt like, especially after coming off 2021, where every game was live or die. So I think the Cowboys will at least return to that state a little bit of being competitive late and having a lot to play for.
I think the Bedlam game, as if it already wasn't big enough, is going to be a real turning point. If I think that one's going to be, if the Cowboys can win that one, I mean, it's momentum slider all the way up to 100. I don't care where it was at before, and it's not the last game. It's in November sometime. So I think that Bedlam game is going to be a real turning point. If the Cowboys can win that one, I think a lot's going to be on the table. You lose that one, momentum slider a lot down. So I think that one's going to be pretty critical.
Is it too early to start? Or is it too early to start anticipating that game? I was thinking nationally, take out a Big 12 interest or anything like that. But if you're a national college football fan, I'd be hard pressed to find one game more enticing and uh, that I'd be more eager to attend than Bedlam this year. I think it'll be a fascinating game. I think it'll be somewhat of a circus, right? Oklahoma State fans who have been on the wrong end of Bedlam for so long, you know that they so badly just want at least something to hold over OU, and that would be a huge piece. That is, well, what happened last time? That's something you can't say anything to. So there's so much going in built into that game, and I guess Oklahoma State has a streak to defend in Stillwater in that game now. So I'm very excited for that game, no doubt.
I don't think it's ever too early to get ready for Bedlam, Sam, especially this last one. It's gonna be a heck of a season. Let's get into some season kind of quick hitters. Who's gonna be the Cowboys MVP?
I think it'll be Ollie Gordon, and it's odd, right? Because he got just about the same work as Jaden Nixon last year, and Jaden Nixon's still staying in the picture, right? So you can say it's a running back by committee situation for Oklahoma State, but the Cowboys, they really want to run the ball this year, right? If it's Bowman that's going to be out there, he's still going to be a quarterback that's new to the system and will benefit from a strong rushing game. And if it's any other quarterback, it'll be especially important to run the ball. That's what Mike Gundy talked up the importance of for so long. So I really think, I mean, we've seen the talent in Ollie Gordon. He's the guy that you can easily find circled once a game on with the yellow marker on TV because he just hit someone with a spin move or something. But Jaden Nixon will be in the picture, but Dominic Richardson's out. It's those guys backfield, maybe a little Elijah Collins mixed in there as well. But I think Ollie Gordon behind an offensive line that I'm expecting to be much improved solely because maybe they won't get hit by the injury bug so bad. I think Ollie Gordon's in for a big year.
I think Alan Bowman is going to be the Cowboys MVP. He has a lot to work with, like you said, a healthy offensive line, some weapons at wideout, and when Alan Bowman's healthy, and he has a lot to work with, a good situation around him, we've seen a 600-yard game.
Yep.
So I think with his maturity, with that stable presence, that's something that the Cowboys missed last season, especially in the back half. So I think Alan Bowman is going to be the Cowboys MVP this season.
That's a wild stat, right? Bowman's the only active college football quarterback with his 600-yard game under his belt. Not that there are too many of those floating around the ether anyway, but that the Cowboys could pick a guy like that up from the transfer portal. If he is that guy that came to Stillwater and torched the Cowboys a couple years ago, if he is that guy who really balled out at Texas Tech as a freshman, then it'll be interesting. He's only thrown 11 passes in the last 2 years. But he does have experience under center. The Cowboys want to run out of that offensive alignment a little more this year. So he feels like a boom or bust player to me a little bit, but the boom could be wow. It could click. And if it clicks, I think you're right. Ben, I'll go now. OSU's breakout player. I'll serve you up for one. Who do you think OSU's breakout player will be?
I'm going to go just on Stribling. I mean, the last time the Cowboys got a Wazoo transfer receiver, it was Tay Martin, and Tay Martin changed the season. So Stribling's a lot younger, but he brings a lot of experience. I think Stribling's going to be a breakout.
I don't know if we talked about him in the game preview, but he's a player I'll be watching pretty closely too. That's exciting. And then Ben, I'll float out. We'll do a couple more of these, but I'll float out Talon Shetron. He had 3 catches last year, but hey, one of them was for a touchdown. And there's just some openings on the OSU offense this year. There are targets open. The Cowboys had plenty of receivers leave, and I think Shetron will be a guy who can slide into that role. You don't have too many guys that Shetron that come into OSU, so I imagine he'll be fed.
Here's a good one. Which departure, transfer portal, or graduation are the Cowboys going to miss most this year?
I think it'll be Spencer Sanders. And I say that because the Cowboys, I think it's fair to say, regardless, they'll be starting a quarterback who doesn't have a ton of experience in the OSU offense, right? And Sanders certainly had that. But I think the Cowboys will miss the electric running game of Spencer Sanders. I'm not saying they'll miss him all the time. He made a lot of mistakes. He's not going to be the starter at Ole Miss, so he's not going to be a huge player that is balling out elsewhere. But I think there will be times, mark it down, 1, 2, 3, 10 moments during the season where the Cowboys are on a 3rd and goal from the 6-yard line, and they wish they could call a QB draw because Spencer Sanders last there could pick that up. So mark it down. I think there will be a couple times where Sanders will be missed.
For me, it's John Paul Richardson. He's the guy the Cowboys are most going to miss, especially on 3rd down. Let's go one player you're watching closely in this first game.
Okay, to wrap it up, the player I'm watching closely, we hit on him, is Justin Kirkland. Watch for that guy in the middle, taking on double teams. Don't expect a ton of stats or crazy takedowns or anything like that, but expect him to plug holes up the middle and really make it hard on the Bears and give everyone around him, Anthony Goodlow, Colin Oliver, all the guys making those plays, sacks and stuff, look for him to make those guys' lives easier.
The player I'll be watching is Josiah Johnson, a UMass transfer tight end. You heard that right, Sam. Tight end. Can you believe it? They're back. I'm excited to see what this offense is going to look like with tight ends. Now is Josiah Johnson, is he going to be a blocking guy? Is he going out for routes? He can do it all. He can even throw a little bit. So maybe that be something to look for this season as well. But I'm looking out for Josiah Johnson.
Okay, Ben, last quick hitter. OSU will be good this season if blank.
If the defense avoids a Jim Knowles start. Remember, Knowles was great in that 1 year, 2021. Ohio State picked him up for that. But the first 2 years before that were rough. If they can avoid a rough start, they're going to be great.
And I think the Cowboys will be good this year if they can average 4.5 yards a carry. That's the number Mike Gundy harps on consistently, and it makes everyone else's life easier in terms of quarterbacks. It makes the receivers' lives easier when the running backs when players are worried about the Cowboys rushing game. So it was not that last year. The Cowboys had the worst rushing year in the Gundy tenure last year. So the offensive line's a lot healthier. We have stories on all this on selloutcrowd.com about the offensive line taking up yoga and how the Cowboys rushing game could, instead of being an anchor as it was last year and weighing this team down, it could be the propulsion to the Cowboys having a better year offensively.
Well, that's it. Thanks so much for joining us on 2 on OSU. Sam Hutchens and Ben Hutchens will be back all year on Sellout Crowd covering OSU. Thank you.